On morality, I remember when I was a teenager, I reached some kind of conclusion that I would never be able to reconcile all of the deficiencies that I had accumulated. I mean to say that I'd set the bar too high, and there were commitments I made that I would never satisfy, and there were promises that I'll never keep, and mistakes that couldn't be undone. And so I wasn't perfect. I was tarnished. I was immaculate. And then, I don't know that I made it consciously, but in retrospection, in looking back, I think that it was something like, all right, now that there is a part of you that you are essentially ashamed of, what do you do with that? Do you present that to the world at large and humble yourself? Do you keep it discreet? Are you quiet about it? Do you not talk about it? Shift focus? Do you lie? Are you two-faced? Do you pretend? Do you live a double life? And in the Army, seemed like most of the guys I knew were practiced at living double lives, at getting really good at keeping up appearances and having a certain public or duty or military face, and then being able to switch it off and go into some completely different mode. And the guys taught me the tricks and showed me the ropes, how to do this, and it wasn't for me. I still hung on to that little Boy Scout voice of, always be right, always be truthful, always look out for others, don't be wasteful. And, I'd think maybe sometimes my mom wouldn't approve, but I didn't approve of my mom, so what kind of argument is that? And then I think dead relatives, grandparents. I think what would my iconic, legendary heroes of the silver screen think? What would, John Wayne's characters think, or Clint Eastwood's characters think if... And so, in my 20s, when I was in the military, I came to another conclusion that sticking by your principles and having integrity and not being two-faced means you're gonna pay a big price if you have to deal with others or institutions or, collectives. And that means kind of going to the wrong part of town, knowing that you ain't supposed to be there and trouble's just coming, and you're trying to do your thing, but eventually trouble will find you. I think that's what having a integrity and moral compass and self-honesty and all that at least in the military nowadays, but I think most groups too. People like their secrets. People hang on to their deviations. We're all born pure, and we have to learn to lie, and we have to learn to compensate with pain. And we learn our vices, and something takes us off the path, something alluring or persuasive or addictive, something comforting, and then we go, oh, okay, well, I'm not pure and innocent like I thought I was, but this thing isn't quite so bad, or maybe this new version of me that includes this variation, this deviation, is, you know, acceptable. And we start to accept our own deformation, our own wilting of the spirit. What I'm getting at is that society is morally corrupted. Yes, it's the Jews that did it. Yes, the Jews are a hive mind of demonic evil. When you give up your identity and you turn yourself over to this shit, then you give up, in essence, what it is to be a man, and you become part of this evil demonic collective. And that's the world we're living in and what we're fighting. That's reality. I mean, argue me if you want. But the world needs the Puritans and the Crusaders and the light bringers. I don't mean that Luciferian shit, but, you know, folks that show the way and help the stumbled and the fallen and offer encouragement. And in a world so crippled with greed and pettiness and filth, it is a battle to be righteous and moral. So be it. You know, what else are you gonna do? Like, most people, I think, do want to fight at some level. I don't mean because they look for conflict, but because as we all give up our innocence or are persuaded out of it, or it's crushed from us, we don't give it all up. There's a connection, a remnant that promotes our halcyonic vision, that makes us remember how great it was. It was better than we think. It was too good. It was perfect. It was unimaginable. We need that. That's the fuel. That's our spark. That's what gets us going. And the ones that lose it entirely, you see it. It makes you sad to see them. But darkness is smothering out the world right now because subversiveness, you know, I remember society being looking out for your neighbor and speaking up and being respectful and being patient and looking out for the other guy and not taking advantage. And I've seen that all just disappear. And I see how media promoted it, and television and movies and that crap. And I've watched news anchors lie and spin my whole life. And I've seen the headlines generated. And I've seen educational institutions just completely compromised, completely sold out from top to bottom. I've seen corporations run this country like a puppet again and again, beat it like a drum, just over and over. I've seen unnecessary war and violence and child trafficking and Jewish supremacy, and I've seen the masses just nod. And I'm not okay with it. It's not okay. But the bright side is, let's go into biology for just a minute. Now, the parasitic thing will hang on to the host until the host is completely exhausted and dies. The nature of the parasite, through its self-preservation, doesn't always think to the next generation. It just thinks to the embodiment of the host that it's in. So, most of the problematic individuals, hook-nosed or not, are invested and intertwined with the current system that is dead, dying. But let's look at mulch. Because as this thing starts to fall apart and the maggots and the parasites have their way with it, new things are going to germinate in the decay. That's nature, right? The forest fire burns everything down, and then the spring rains come, and the seeds and the critters and the birds and everything, and new flowers, new animals are drawn, the migration, then boom, you get all the colors of nature and bounty and fruits and vegetables and wildlife. Gotta have death to create life, and the system dying is a tremendous death. Now, will people die with it? Well, as they're attached to it, dependent on their attachment and detachment. Now, the ones that focus on their independence now, clearly they'll fare far better. But I don't just want to take care of myself. And as much as living alone in a cave in the woods sounds fantastic, I prescribe to the idea that no man is an island. I think much of bond, kinship, brotherhood, fraternity. I think of community. I think of church. There's questions that I'll never have answered, but I'll keep asking them till I die. And I ask these questions in foxholes and in bars and in garages and on long road trips. Maybe just living in a hut is good enough for me physically, but mentally, spiritually, I'm fighting the same existence that my brothers are fighting. And I want to collaborate with them and know what they ponder and what kind of assertions they've made. And I'd like to hear other people's points of view and see their vision of the world, see where their horizons begin and end, and hear their anecdotes. In moderation, of course. Now, ideally, I'd like, all of the problems of the world to just dry up and blow away. It's not going to happen like that. It'll take each of us quieting our mind and operating at our own speed, and then meeting up with one another at what's right, at the right frequency, at the right distance, at the right volume, the right energy level. But as this thing dies, I see growth, the yin and the yang. I'm fine, I believed in the American dream, and I enlisted, and I was hoo-ah and all that crap. And I still have a flag in the yard, and lots of folded flags around the house. The dream was beautiful, but now that it's dying, it's time to evolve. I'm not going to die with America or the economy or the globo homo. I'm going to die living a free white Christian man wherever I may be, doing whatever I choose to, in line with my moral compass and my personal convictions. And then how I address the world is entirely up to me. I don't know if I can get anything out of all that. That's where my mind's at. See if that makes any sense. Thanks, guys.